Good afternoon and welcome to the Dairy Signal. We're happy to have you with us on this wonderful Thursday afternoon. Today, we are excited to welcome back Morgan Ekovich, owner of Get Fit With Me, who specializes in helping individuals build sustainable habits, strengthen accountability, and take consistent action towards their goals. Before we begin, just a reminder that this is a live program, so take this opportunity to ask questions of Morgan. To do so, you can click the three dots in the bottom right corner of your screen and click ask a question. You'll have to enter a couple pieces of information and then hit submit. Also, if you're participating for continuing education credits, a quiz will pop up at the end of the episode. Please complete the quiz and then click submit. Today, we're diving into a topic that matters to everyone. We're kind of going to touch on accountability and after we make our goals, how do we stay accountable in achieving them? So, before we get into that, I'm going to turn it over to Morgan to give a quick introduction to herself, today's topic, and I also want to highlight that Morgan will be speaking at our 2026 annual business conference. So, Morgan, if you want to give us a bit of an intro into what people will see that at those sessions, that would be great.
Yes. Thank you, Haley, and everyone for having me on again today. I'm super excited. I feel like it's been a really long time. I think I actually spoke in December, but January is just always a super long month.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm an online personal trainer and nutrition coach. I've been at business conference for at least the last 2 years, possibly three. I might have lost count at this point. And I help you essentially create sustainable habits in your life that work for you. I work with busy women, busy men, busy professionals, and I know those of you listening, you can resonate with the word busy. Like we have so much happening. So I essentially help you add stretching, movement, whatever movement is best for your body into your life. We look at your diet and your nutrition and decide, okay, is there anything we need to implement? Is there anything we maybe need to eat a little less of? We look at our water, our sleep, and our stress. And right now, I think this time of the year, especially when there's not very much sun, those stress levels always seem to be a little bit higher when we're just like dealing with all of the things and they tend to sit in our brains a little longer.
Yes.
So super excited to be back at business conference. When I'm there this year, it's going to look a little bit differently. So on Wednesday, I'm going to be in the learning lounge from 1 to 1:30, and I'm going to be doing one of those quick sessions. We're going to be diving into nutrition. I'm going to be giving you 5 tips that you can do right away when you leave the session, and I'll have some things in the proceedings for you. So if you are a veteran at business conference, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. If you are new, you will learn all about it when you get there, I promise. And then the fun thing is on Thursday morning, we're going to be doing a sunrise stretch. So from 7 to 7:45, I want you to come in your active gear, your workout gear, something comfortable, your pajamas, I don't care, and we're going to stretch. And then because it's cold in Wisconsin in March, I depending on if people are up for moving, we may just do like a general walking session together to get some steps in because you guys are going to be sitting for the rest of the day. Like, let's get your body moving, let's get those steps in, let's get moving throughout the day. So, those are the two things that you can find me at business conference.
We are so excited to have you back at business conference. I know personally, I would love to partake in the morning stretch session. I try to do that on my own, but having like a guided stretch, to me, those are way more beneficial, and can get you started off on the right foot. So I'm personally really looking forward to that. First question, I guess we'll kind of just start with some accountability related questions, and go from there. So the first question I have from you is many people say they don't know where to start when it comes to in terms of making goals, either personally or professionally. How do you help someone define a clear and realistic goal?
Yeah, so I always love this. I just did a workshop last Wednesday on this actually, and it for the businesses, but it pertains to all areas of life. And one of the things we have to do before we create a goal is we have to remember to look back at what has happened, whether it's the last year, the last month, the last quarter, and acknowledge what we've done and be like, wow, I have done some really amazing things. Maybe we did not set a goal, but you still did great things. A lot of us are not a fan of the word goal setting anymore. Personally, I don't like the word goal setting. I like to set intentions for the year, for the quarter, for the week, for even the day. So if goal is something that you're like, "Ugh, we're talking goals again, use the word intention. Find that word that just resonates with you. But we want to look back and first acknowledge everything that we've done really, really great. And then from there, kind of take another second and say, was there anything that made those intentions or those goals possible? So, for instance, if I'm going to keep it in workout mode, for instance, last year, maybe you hit your goal of doing 100 workouts. Well, what helped you get to there? Was it adding it to your planner? So, was it having your alarm set and your clothes out the night before? What helped make that intention possible? And the reason we do that is most likely something else we are going to be adding or we want to grow on is going to need one of those skills that we've already been doing just for another area in our life. So once we've kind of looked back and we've seen and we've patted ourselves on the back, then we get to look forward and we get to decide, okay, am I doing a personal goal or a business goal? Pick one to start and then pick only one thing in that area. That's the thing that gets us really is we're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Wonderful. You're going to do all the things. We get burned out. So instead of saying, I'm going to drink the water, I'm going to change my nutrition, I'm going to get to the gym 5 days a week, how about we say, I'm going to drink my water? I'm going to figure out first how many ounces of water I'm drinking and say, okay, I'm drinking 40 ounces. I want to get to 60. I'm going to work on drinking 45 ounces for the next 7 to 10 days. If you do that consistently, slowly bump it up.
Mhm.
Once you feel like you've done that, then you can move on to adding, okay, I'm going to start adding an extra vegetable into my day. I'm going to start adding a 5 minute stretch session. And when we are building these, is yes, the end goal is probably to feel better, to lose weight, to be more mobile, to lift heavier. And I'm keeping it all in exercise mode right now. But whatever that end goal is, all these little stepping stones are little mini goals that you have to hit to even hit that big goal. So we can create that big lofty goal, which is awesome. But if we don't hit those little micro goals along the way, we're not going to get there, or we're going to kind of get there and it's going to take us a really long time.
That is an excellent point. I've always heard the trend almost called habit stacking or just micro
Mhm.
habits of implementation. And to me, those definitely seem like something you can bite off a little easier than making that big lofty goal and then trying to commit to it right away. And I like, yeah, obviously tying into accountability with those micro steps or micro habits, those changes are a little bit more easy to keep up with. Um, Going back to accountability, what role does mindset play in accountability, and how can someone shift out of like that all or nothing thinking between going, I have to complete this goal all in one shot and kind of going to the micro habits?
We, I find women in particular, we tend to have it's got to be done perfect mindset. There's
Yeah.
something about it's got to look perfect before we submit the email, before we do this. I know men, you also deal with this as well, but I find women tend to deal with it on a more frequent basis in more areas of their life. And the biggest thing that I find is thinking about, okay, so our goal is 60 ounces of water. Let's say that is your goal. Well, let's say you only got 40. That doesn't mean you didn't drink any water throughout your day. That means you don't give yourself a check for reaching your water goal, but you still drank water. So when we are trying to get out of that all or nothing mindset, doing something is always better than doing nothing. If
Hmm.
you're like, I was going to go and I was going to take that class this morning, oh, but the weather got in the way or the teacher canceled. Instead of just saying, oh, well, that's my free pass, you're going to maybe you just get up at the same time and you just stretch for 5 minutes. Things like that in those small bits of time and um, those time and those moments and things like that are actually going to build that consistency which creates the accountability to yourself. If you can show up for yourself and you can keep your word saying, I am going to move my body today, knowing that life will sometimes throw very unpredictable things at you and you can't keep your word. But most of the time, we can. We can shift from a 30-minute movement session to a 5 minute movement session. We all have at least 5 minutes in our day. It's just about getting creative to find that 5 minutes because time's that other thing we run into. I don't have time. So finding it, those little spots where you can still be accountable to yourself and tracking it. Anywhere you can visually track, you will start to see the buildup and you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing the thing. It's so much more gratifying than trying to remember, did I do it yesterday? I don't know.
Yeah. Kind of, I guess going back a little bit, to maybe more of the definition of accountability. But in your opinion, what does healthy accountability look like, and what does unhealthy accountability look like?
So, healthy accountability, I think, it looks a little bit differently for everybody. So, for me, when I am working with clients or I'm working with myself, it's essentially keeping my word, making the commitment that I'm going to do the thing. If something comes up and I'm not able to do it, I'm honest with myself. Yep, I'm not going to make that's not going to happen today. For instance, if you are working on a water goal, this has happened to me recently, and it's like 3 in the afternoon, you realize you only have one of your waters in and you're supposed to have two more by the time you go to bed, please don't like chug to make it happen. Like just acknowledge like, "Oh, I didn't do a good job of managing my water earlier in the day because I don't want you to lose sleep because you're up peeing." Like there's those things and just being honest with yourself. So being able to be honest with yourself on the real reason on why you didn't do something. I think unhealthy accountability is not being honest with yourself and letting it be the world's fault on why it didn't happen, or just being like, oh, it wasn't perfect. So I'm just not going to do any of it. So both of those extremes is taking ownership for it and knowing that it has to ebb and flow. You guys are all in the agricultural area. Like, nothing goes perfect. You can have the best plant of the day. It's not going to go the way that you want it to. I can guarantee it. And you know that.
Yes, that is an excellent, excellent point. I definitely think a lot of us do get caught in the it has to be perfect before I start. I know I am guilty of that as well. But I like the piece that you said about keeping your word to yourself and being honest on why it didn't happen and not just focusing on that it didn't happen, but kind of moving forward even if it wasn't perfect that day. Also, another, I guess, with accountability, a support system for accountability, what type of people or where do you tend to suggest people look for a support system to keep them accountable?
Yeah. So the first thing is I don't care what the goal is or what the intention is and what you want accountability around, but finding people who are working towards the same or similar outcome as you. So if you want to grow your business, if you want to grow the farm and you want to add other things and you want to be surrounded by those who are the next level up or who are working at the same level as you towards that same goal of we want to grow the farm, we want to have a little shop at the end of the road so that we can sell our meat. Like you want to surround yourself around the people working towards the same goal. Same thing when it comes to exercise. If you're around people all the time who don't care about their nutrition, who don't care about their exercise, it's really easy for you to be like, oh, well, that's not important to them. It doesn't have to be important to me. Maybe it's something, but if it's important to you, find people who also know it's important to them. And Haley, you and I may be working on different goals. You may be saying, I want to go and I want to hit 10,000 steps a day. And I may be saying, I want to go and make sure I get my 3 strength training workouts in per week. But we're still working towards the end goal of being a healthier version of ourselves, even though healthy looks different to each of us and how we get there is different. So no matter what your end goal is, finding people that you can share that goal with, as well as those people that you can share and they are also on the same path as you, even if it's not the exact same path. You guys are all working together going down that field.
Yes, that's an excellent point. I guess I'm gonna go now on the flip side of that, almost devil's advocate. What tools can people
Yeah.
use to hold themselves accountable without, an external support system?
Yeah. So one of my favorite to always recommend is if you ever had kids or you remember being a kid and you were learning how to potty train. And there's the potty chart on your fridge that every time you went potty, you put a sticker on.
Mhm.
Something as simple as printing off a calendar and every single time you follow through on what you say you're going to do, whether it's if it's in the business and you're like, I am going to reach out to a new distributor every single week. Every single time you do that, you acknowledge that. You put a sticker on. If it's drinking your water, every single time you reach your water goal, you put a sticker on. Something visual like that. You can be as simple as that little chart. You can get apps on your phone. I just sent a client a few, or a potential client, a few different apps, and she's like, those are all for iPhones. So, Android wise, I apparently am not versed in what habit apps because I thought Android and Apple kind of all shared the same
Yeah.
apps, but apparently not. So, when it comes to habit wise, just go to your app store, type in habit tracker, and look at the top rated one. For me, I like to any of them that are visually pleasing. So if there's like some nice colors, it's not just like the black and white. I always kind of look back at if we all remember Craigslist, I would much rather shop on Marketplace
Yeah.
versus Craigslist. It's just a little bit more appealing. And something about making it fun and a little bit more aesthetic allow we want to go in and we want to check things off. So you
Mhm.
can download any habit app you want, put the habit in there, mark the days you did it, mark the days you didn't, track it that way. You can also just write it down on a piece of paper. It doesn't matter, but when we are tracking these, pick a system and try the system out for a couple weeks. Something that happens is people are like, "Oh, I've tried the potty chart. Oh, that didn't work. The tracking didn't work, the habit didn't work." So then they try a different system and they half-ass it. And then they try a different system. Pick a system, play it through for a couple weeks. And then if it doesn't work, ask yourself, why is it not working?
Mhm.
Well, the sticker chart doesn't work because it only works when I'm at home. That's why the app is nice. You can take it anywhere you are. You can be in the tractor, you can be in the office, you can be in the car and say, "Oh, I hit my water for the day." So focusing on those and how does it need to look for your life? Are you busy on the go? Or do you get to be at home a decent amount of time and a real calendar works for you?
That makes sense. Actually, I've seen apps like the habit trackers that you were talking about where they actually have a pet that you have to like keep the pet alive by getting your habits checked off. So those are another like more fun way to kind of keep track of that as well. Going kind of back to because we keep mentioning like water goals and stuff like that. When we're looking at a goal, how many small of those micro steps or micro habits do you like to recommend to people to implement moving towards their bigger goal or intention? So would you say it'd be three habits, two? I guess how do you kind of start getting them on the track to moving towards their set intention?
Yeah. So let's make the big goal weight loss because I feel like that's one that we go into the new year and everybody's got something in their head right now. Um, so let's make your big goal weight loss. So to hit weight loss, there's components that we have to be able to manage. We have to make sure we're getting good sleep. We have to make sure that we can manage our stress levels. We're drinking water. We're getting a good balance of meals throughout our day, and we are moving our body. For some of you, you may be getting too much movement because by 9 a.m. you have 30,000 steps because that's just what your life looks like. For you, we maybe need to prioritize rest and recovery. So we may not create a micro habit for movement because that's something that's already happening in your day. But so we look at essentially what that goal is and what are you doing right now to work towards that goal? Are you drinking any water? Awesome. How many ounces? 40 ounces. Good. Let's get you to 60. So let's slowly move that up. I find water is the easiest one to implement first. It's where people have the least amount of resistance because it doesn't take any extra time.
Yep.
It just takes them remembering a reusable water bottle that they really only have to fill up twice. If we can get it so you only have to fill it up twice, maybe three times to hit your goal, the less resistance we have, the better. And then from there, nutrition wise, I always have everyone do a food log. Before I recommend what we need to add into our diet, we need to first look at what are you even eating? And a lot of us just are not aware of how much and what we are putting in our body. We're like, yeah, I eat breakfast, I grab this and I have this. And but our day's so busy that we're not conscious of what we're putting in our body that when I make you either write it down or type it out in your phone or track it in any of the food tracking apps, you create a lot of awareness there of like, I haven't had a vegetable in 5 days. Yeah, that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to find you a vegetable that you can have every day because we
Yeah.
need vegetables, we need fruits. So before we go and we create those levels, we have to figure out where everybody is and then from there, we decide does it need to be 10 steps of water or can it be 3 steps of water before we've kind of hit that ultimate goal? Okay, and then do we move to nutrition? Then do we move to movement? So it's very personalized, but it all starts from really acknowledging what is happening and what are you doing consistently? Because a lot of times we don't think we're doing anything. we've tricked ourselves into thinking we're not doing anything when you are doing things.
Right.
We just don't feel like they're enough. So let's acknowledge that we are doing the things and let's just find what that next level up is.
No, I think that's perfect going back to what we were talking about before. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, like you are doing something. Just out of curiosity, when you have your clients do the food tracking, do you see that most of them are surprised that they were hitting their calorie, like they were overeating or undereating, or did most of them like, oh, I was actually kind of right in track where I was supposed to be? What are you seeing when you make your clients do that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I see a variety of things. I see people who are not realizing that they're not eating enough protein throughout their day. Also, who are only getting about 5 grams of fiber. And really, we should be aiming for 20 to 25 grams of fiber as females, and 25 to 32, I believe, for males. So even higher. Um, so really, we look at that. That's one of the things they notice first is we look at and they're like, oh, I only have 60 grams of protein. I have 5 grams of fiber. And then the other is sugar intake. That's the other thing we see is because depending on what app you track in, you will notice that you will see your sugar in grams. And there's added sugar in a lot of things that now when you look at ingredients labels, you can see total sugar and then added sugar. So if there's only 5 grams of added sugar, but there's 15 total, that means 10 of that sugar is natural, which is great. It means they've only added five additional. So those are like the things that people typically see when we look at numbers. Calorie wise, it's they don't really have a like, oh wow, I'm really going over on calories because those apps they go in and they put in their own parameters.
Okay.
Whereas my clients who write it, they're like, oh yeah, I have a sweet after every single meal. That is what they then notice. They're like, uh-huh, I've had 6 cookies today. Why did I have 6 cookies today? Was I even hungry for those? So it depends on how you track, depends on what I typically see for them to pick up on.
Awesome. You kind of mentioned one more thing that leads me to another question. You'd mentioned the protein and fiber intake, which I feel like are major buzzwords right now, in the health and
Mhm.
wellness industry. Specifically, I feel like fiber is getting a lot more attention than it used to. What are some other trends or I guess buzzwords that you're seeing that you're kind of either agreeing with or not so agreeing with?
Yeah. So one of the thing, it's funny you asked this because I just was noticing some stuff yesterday. Creatine is really coming out. That is the supplement that is out there. I had actually not dove into it too much until recently, and I've actually started taking it, but I've also increased my lifts. And it is one of the most studied supplements out there. So I did my own research. I found the one that I wanted to try. I saw somebody else's post and I thought this was wonderful. So if you are seeing creatine out there and you are female and they are charging more for a pink one because it's going to work better for you, that's not true. They're charging you more to market to you. You're paying for the marketing. So if that's something you are looking into, it works. The general is fine. You don't need a specific women's creatine. And I've got a ton of resources and stuff on this, but that's something that I'm seeing people talk about. And I've had multiple clients reach out of like, I've been seeing this. Should I be doing it? If you are lifting, there's benefits even if you don't lift a creatine. Um, but I didn't do it until I started lifting more because the benefits are greater there. But until then, I don't need another supplement to throw into to try to manage and spend money on. Protein, fiber, and then the other one is and this is more just an eye-opening trend that I'm really happy is coming back around, is that 12 and 1400 calories is not sustainable long term. So often we think our body needs that much to just be a human, depending on our size. So if that is all we are eating, we may be losing weight, but we are not. We are losing muscle. We are losing water weight. We are not losing the fat. And that is what people really want to lose. If you're losing weight, you want to lose the fat. You don't want to lose the muscle that you're working for.
Right.
Water is great, I guess. Like that's going to be your most fluctuation one, but those are the ones that I actually just saw yesterday and they just were on a repeat for the couple minutes I was scrolling. I was like, "Okay, these are our new trends." cool. Now we've hit the end of January. Protein is on the way out, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but like you still need protein. Please don't, you still need protein. You do need more fiber than you probably think. I helped a client bring her cholesterol levels down by implementing more fiber. So she's never had to go on medication. So we can change our diets to not have to be on medications. Um, so keeping some of that in mind of knowing what you eat and how much you eat of things is really important.
Yes, perfect. I forgot about the creatine one. Yes, I have also seen a lot of buzz about that, as well as the protein and fiber intake. I've also seen a lot on calorie deficit because I feel like that's what people are focusing on for weight loss techniques. And I think you bringing up the point of the 12,000 to 1,400 calories being not sustainable because I feel like that's where a lot of people were pushing their calorie deficits to be. So that's another thing too that people probably need to look more into what is their calorie deficit, not necessarily what the internet is recommending for them.
And just because somebody shows a video of what they eat in the day,
Yeah.
please do not follow it blindly.
Yeah.
Like so many people do. And like use it for ideas of meals to create for yourself. You're like, "Oh, that looked really good." Use it as an idea. But like every body is different. Every body and everybody is different.
Mhm.
And you don't know what their calorie intake is. You don't know what their workouts look like. You don't know what their day to day, you don't know what their stress levels are. So those right there stress me out of like, this is what I eat in a day. I'm like, no, just give me meal ideas. That's what
Yeah.
I want. I want different meal combos.
Yes. Speaking of meals, I kind of wanted to maybe touch on meal prepping a little bit. I think that does fit into our accountability topic as well.
Yeah.
And what are some of your best suggestions for meal prepping and avoiding that, by Thursday, I've had ground beef and rice for the fourth time and I want something different. So what are maybe some tips that you have that can help people still, reach their goals and stay accountable, but also enjoy it?
Yes. So, number one thing is the first two things you should ever do for meal prepping is actually get out a calendar and write what you plan to eat for the week. And then get the groceries so that you can actually execute that plan. If that is all you do, that is the first two things you can do to set yourself up for success. If you don't figure out what you're eating for the week and you don't know what's in your pantry and you haven't gone and got groceries, I can guarantee you are grabbing some random stuff. You're making sad rice, like my girlfriend and I call it. It's literally like a bunch of canned stuff we find and some rice. It's not great. I'm going to be honest. Done it way too many times. That like even just setting yourself up and you can if you know your week, if you know your 2 weeks ahead of time, you can plan 2 weeks at a time. You can say, we're going to do this for breakfast every week because I can eat the same thing for breakfast and not get tired. For lunch, these are my 3 lunch options and you alternate them from day to day. And for dinner, these are my 5 options that I rotate through. So having a variety in there, but also not 10 meals, like like 2 to 4. If you're only working on a week, 2 to 4 is plenty. Um, One of the things that I've been doing recently is my breakfast looks exactly the same. I've got egg whites, I've got eggs, I've got sourdough toast, a bunch of veggies, and honey goat cheese. It's like my favorite. Honey goat cheese
So
is
good.
like love language and sourdough. Like put all that together, so amazing. So that I have no issues with, but I get bored of eating the same thing at lunch and at dinner. So I always try to do a lean protein at one of the meals if possible. So some sort of chicken, tuna, turkey, venison, because venison's pretty lean, some sort of lean meat at one of the meals. And the other one, I'll do red meat so that I'm switching it up because nobody wants to eat chicken for 2 meals or 3 meals in a row in a day, let alone throughout the entire week. Chicken's not that good. I'm gonna be honest. Like chicken breasts are not. Chicken thighs, on the other hand. But that would fall kind of in that ground beef category because there's more fat in that. So you could do chicken breasts for lunch, chicken thighs for dinner. But having a few of your go-to that you even just have on hand, like we buy a cow, we have a deer that I know in our freezer, I have options. And I'm like, okay, what are my lean proteins for the week and what are my higher fat proteins for the week? And then I just pull those out and those are the ones I'm sticking with rather than I have all these possibilities to choose from. I just pick my couple for the week and then from there you can prep ahead of time if you want or you can just have it in the fridge where it's defrosted and then you can cook it up day of. depending. I know not everybody likes leftovers. Some people get tired of leftovers.
Yep.
It's always better when it's fresh, but like sometimes you that doesn't work. Sometimes a bag of tuna goes a really long way.
No, I like that point. I'm just saying, like, you can still meal prep in a way of like having the ingredients ready. And I think a big one is obviously having like meat prepared, and ready to cook either after work or after chores or whatever that might be. Versus like, okay, I need to cook all my meals for the week on Sunday, and then by Friday I'm eating leftovers. No, I think that's a great point or a great way to kind of work towards it, but also get around that like flavor fatigue or eating something all the time. Going back to probably a little bit more of our overall accountability talk, a question that I had also thought of was similar to, I guess, just getting burnt out while making progress, losing that motivation, losing the, I just don't have time for it, I'm just not going to worry about it, basically burnout. What are your
Mhm.
recommendations for kind of moving past that?
When it starts to get boring, that means it's working. I
That's a good point.
when it starts to feel boring and that you're like, oh, I have to go do the thing again. But you know that when you leave doing the thing or when you leave eating the thing, you feel more energized and your body responds better. You are doing the right thing. One of the things that happens is we have ADD when it comes to our health. We're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, this didn't work. I'll switch to here. Or like we start to get that feeling of like, oh, I'm feeling burned out. I'm feeling bored. So gamifying it any way you can. So even downloading a different app, like I was a Tamagotchi kid. I don't know how many people remember Tamagotchis, but that's essentially the app you were talking about. It's
Yep.
this little pet you keep alive that like you can do that with your water by tracking your food. There's so many ways that you can gamify it. You can add a reward to the end. Say, if I do make a commitment to yourself, if I do this and I reach this goal, this is going to be my reward. Maybe it's you're going to go and have a nice dinner. Maybe you're going to go have a massage. Maybe you're going to turn off your phone for an hour because that's a reward to you. It like everybody's reward is different. Um, that burnout feeling is when people quit. That burnout feeling is when people decide, nah, I'm going to try something different. That right there is when the consistency of just saying, I'm going to follow the plan and I'm going to show up. And even if it's boring, I'm going to do it. Because as soon as it becomes boring, the more boring it becomes, the more second nature it becomes. Like I track my water just because I like to have the little check mark, but like I don't need to track my water anymore. I I know that I will hit it every day. It's a thing that I've just been doing for so long, but it's boring. It is boring to sit here and say, I'm gonna drink 3 water bottles.
Yeah.
So changing up the water bottle, changing up the cup, changing up the workout, or saying, okay, if I follow through with my yoga plan that I had signed up for, I'm going to try a different class this next month. Like rewarding yourself for showing up and doing the thing and just keep going. Just keep going. I promise. It gets better. It gets better and it becomes second nature. And I know that's not super great advice, but like I've been there. And I am
Yeah.
somebody who likes to bounce around with things. And it's hard to keep doing it when it gets boring. And if you're a business owner, you know that because you're like, oh, next offer, next thing, next thing. And you're like, okay, well, probably should just go back to the basics. The basics will continue to work forever.
That is perfect. They obviously in health and fitness, the words consistency is key is pretty much projected everywhere, which is exactly what you are describing to us. Which it kind of follows that actually kind of answered my next question was just when someone loses momentum, how can you encourage them to move forward? I think you kind of already answered that with yes, we might lose momentum, but just knowing how we have to keep pushing to get there as well. But if you have anything else to add on that, when we lose momentum. How do we get it back?
And and I think it's remembering that consistency doesn't look like doing all the things right every single day. It means one day I drink one of these, one day I drink two of these, one day I drink three of these, and then I drink for 3 days in a row, I drink 3 water bottles, and then I go back to drinking two. Like, but you are consistently doing the ultimate goal of drinking water. And I think that's where we get ourselves all caught up and like, oh, I didn't do it perfect, or I'm not being consistent because it's not happening 100%. That's not true. We are adjusting to what we need to based on the environment around us. it's going to be negative 12 here tomorrow. I can guarantee if I had a goal to walk outside every single day, that would not be happening tomorrow. And I know that. So I would say, okay, can I get it to the gym? Can I open a YouTube class where I can do some sort of step thing in my living room? Can I use my walking pad? Like, how can I adjust when I know I need to ahead of time? Or life throws a curveball and I'm like, okay, I I'm out of water. I'm in the car for 4 hours. Next time I stop, I'm just going to get a water bottle and I'll get as much in today as I can. Because that's the other thing is sometimes you guys are in positions where if you don't plan ahead to have extra water, you may be sitting there really thirsty for a few hours. And that's okay. It's just what life throws at us.
So what I'm gathering from that is accountability doesn't mean being strict with ourselves and not missing. It means just trying every day.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, Kind of going with that, when we are talking about, obviously we have our goals or our intentions, but almost on the flip side of that, minimums. Do we have minimum? Can we talk a little bit more about the minimum standards? I know you had mentioned
Yeah.
that in a previous Dairy Signal episode, so I kind of wanted to go back to that because that did really resonate with me versus setting almost like, okay, yes, I need to drink 3 water bottles. What's my, on the flip side, what's my bare minimum? Like, what do I have to complete today? So maybe going into a little bit what that looks like, what you would recommend for movement goals, water, and then nutrition intake, but on what does the minimum need to look like?
Yeah. So first, that kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier of
Yeah.
first establishing what are you currently doing? And what you are currently doing on a consistent basis, that is your minimum. If it is 1 5-minute stretch a week, if it's one water bottle, if it's getting 3,000 steps, that is your absolute bare minimum because that is where you started. And then you've got your goal, and then you've got that like sliding scale in between. Personally, I give myself an 8 to 10,000 step goal a day. I usually hit somewhere between 8 and 9. Very rarely lately because it's cold and my house is not very big. Do I hit the 9,000, the 10,000 steps or even above? But I give myself that range. So you can give yourself a range for anything. You can say 30 to 60 ounces of water. Whatever that bottom number is your minimum. And it's going to look different. Maybe it's my goal is 3 servings of vegetables a day. My minimum is one. Maybe it's a palm sized serving of protein at each meal is the goal. Okay, I'm going to get it at breakfast that because that is the most important one that I know fuels my body the best. So for you, figure out what was that bare minimum look like. And then just know that that's not what we are aiming for every day. That's what we're aiming for when shit hits the fan. When all of a sudden life does not go as planned and we just need to know, like, I did my bare minimum today. That's what that's for. It's not for us to just like, I'm gonna work towards that every day. No, you're still working towards that goal that we set. That's just there as our safety net to remind us that like we did something. So that's kind of how I look at those bare minimums, and they will change over time for those steps. Like I didn't start there. I started with 3 to 5 and then 5 to 7. Those bare minimums and those ranges slowly move up as you build consistency and as you get in the habit of doing them.
Yes, that's perfect. Um, Now I think I do want to switch a little bit into, we had touched on it a little bit earlier, stress management. We've kind of hit on more
Yes.
of the water intake, movement, and nutrition goals, but stress management and sleep, I think, is one thing that especially dairy farmers and I mean all farmers in this industry is probably a big pain point and one of the biggest hurdles that they have to overcome, and especially now with things getting a little bit tighter in the industry and maybe a bit more stressful, could you just give us an overview of some tips or what you would recommend to focusing on prioritizing sleep and managing stress in these times?
Yeah. So all movement is good movement. But if we are talking and you've come to me and said, Morgan, I haven't slept in 2 days, I don't want you to move. I want you to get sleep. I want you to let your brain and your body reset. And that happens when we sleep. So some of these things are actually more important than others because we can drink all the water, we can eat the good food, we can exercise. But if you are not giving your body time to recover and you are not managing your stress levels, you're not going to see differences. So when it comes to, let's talk sleep first. Let's split these up into two categories. So things that are really important are trying to have as consistent as possible of a bedtime within like an hour. So that doesn't mean at 9 o'clock you have to go up and go to bed, but it means somewhere between 9 and 10, 10 and 11, 8 and 9, whatever your life looks like that you are saying, I'm going to go get ready for bed. I'm going to wind down. And somewhere within that hour, you will hopefully fall asleep. So, having a consistent go to bed and wake up time is really great for our sleep rhythm. So, if we're somebody who's like, I go to bed at 2 one night, I go to bed at 9 one night, I wake up at 5, I wake up at 10, like our body has trouble trying to figure out what's happening. So, we can talk about quality, we can talk about quantity of sleep. But first thing is like, are you setting yourself up for success when you go to bed? Are you slowly winding down? Are you putting your phone on sleep mode? Are you maybe putting it in another room? And if you can't keep it in another room because you're like, I have to be able to pick up for emergencies, are you allowing just those emergency numbers to come through and not everybody who else has decided to reach out to you at that point in the day? Because we all have those messages that come through that are not urgent.
Mhm.
S Are you winding yourself down? For some, it's reading, it's watching a show. The less we can scroll on our phones, the better. I'm a big TV girl. I have been my entire life. I used to have like a mini DVD player that like I would sleep next to. So like, but my TV is far enough away. It's really like my volume's really low. It's more of I like the sound. Maybe you have a sound machine, something to help get you in that routine every single night. Whether you go to bed at 9, you go to bed at 10 or 11, but you know that every single night your body can start to calm itself down because it knows what you're doing. You're brushing your teeth, you're brushing your hair. Everybody's routine is different of what you do. So having that consistent bedtime routine and then just making sure that you're giving yourself time to wind down in bed. A lot of times we run ourselves up until bedtime. We're running around the house, we're doing all the things, and then we like go into the bedroom and we lay down and expect to like fall asleep right away. Some of us do. I can. I'm one of those people, which also it's not healthy to fall asleep like immediately when your head hits the pillow. Means you're a little too overworked. Ideally, it should take anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes for you to calmly fall asleep at night. If you're taking 30 minutes to an hour, we got to implement something. And typically, the reason we struggle with that is our stress levels. We are overthinkers. We have a lot on our brain. We are thinking of tomorrow's to do list. So, some things you can do, the more you can stay off your phone, the best. But if you can't, I understand. Keep a notebook next to your bedside that you just brain dump. So, for 5 minutes, brain dump everything that's coming into your mind. Because what will keep us up is trying to remember those things as we lay there in bed and we think, okay, tomorrow I've got to call the vet. Tomorrow I've got to do this. Write them down so that they're not in your brain, they are captured. So start by doing that. Reading a book before bed can be really great. I get about a paragraph in and I'm out. Um, Books are a really good put me to sleeper, but maybe you're a reader or you want to, and it doesn't have to be something educational for you. It can be something fun. It can be the newspaper. It can be a magazine, but maybe it's reading something at the end of the night to help get your mind off of all the things that are running around in it. Podcasts, there are a ton out there. You could do any form you like. Some people like shows that are like podcasts, like the murder podcast. Some people like Calm, like there's the Calm app where you can do like meditations, breathing exercises, knowing how to do box breathing, and just being able to slow our nervous system down. All tools that help us wind down at the night, but they are also good tools during the day when we feel like stress is high. I'm about to have a mental breakdown. I'm about to snap on that person around me because we all know that feeling. And if you don't know that feeling, please let me know how you've gotten through life thus far without having that feeling. That would be wonderful. I would love to know your secret. Um, but having some of these things, for me, I like to color. I have a coloring book and some colored pencils. It's just mindless for me. I may not do even do a whole page, but I'll just go for a couple minutes and it relaxes my brain. It gets me to stop thinking. It gets my heart rate to stop being so high and anxious when things are happening. And it just reminds me to breathe. But having any of these stress reductions in your back pocket throughout the day, another really good one is, well, it's kind of a two-parter. If you are feeling stressed or anxious, remove yourself from the environment or the person or whatever it is. Just remove yourself for a couple minutes. Say, hey, I need to go take a minute. Sometimes that itself is the clarity that you need just to kind of bring yourself down. The other is go take a brief walk, go get outside, get some fresh air, take a little, like 5 minutes. Like you walking outside for 5 minutes to bring your stress down is so much healthier for you and your blood pressure and your heart than you continuing to work through it because you don't think the work's going to get done. The amount of stress that stress puts on our heart and our bodies in general is unbelievable. So if you can start to implement these on a regular basis, even before you're like, I always feel stressed before we have our team meeting, pick one of these to do to kind of prepare yourself of, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes outside, just breathing in the air. Okay, now I'm going to go to the meeting. I always feel stress coming out. I am going to do a little bit of reading here. I'm going to spend 5 minutes just reading and having 5 minutes to myself. And the reason I say 5 minutes is we can all find it somewhere. And I feel like when I say 5 minutes, we can step away for that long. If you say 10 or 15, look at all that work I'm going to lose. So 5 is one where I feel like we don't lose too much work in our minds. And I'm putting it in quotations because we're all different.
No, that's so perfect. I really resonate with that. And I think a lot of our listeners will too with I can handle 5 minutes. Like you said, if it gets longer than that, I tend to think it almost stresses us out more thinking about all the work and like, oh, I'm not working for those 5 minutes or I'm not working for those 10 minutes. But in reality, the cost benefit of that is a little bit higher, saving yourself the stress and the high blood pressure. And the probably ability to sleep later that night if you just take those 5 minutes to let your nervous system calm down a little bit. That kind of was another trend or that I had heard a lot about too is cortisol levels.
Mhm.
That being, I think, maybe more of a talked about topic lately, which I think ties into what we were discussing a little bit. I guess is your, because I've also heard mixed things that's really not, they've turned that into more of a buzzword than it needs to be when it really is just stress management. I guess what are your thoughts on that buzzword, I guess?
So, females, it's really crazy because we have a 21-day cycle.
Mhm.
So, those levels are already different every single day. Males, you have a 24-hour cycle. Lucky you. So, yours are pretty similar every single day. And it's easier for you to have a test done and see, like, oh, my levels are high. But it boils down to how are we eating? How are we drinking our water? Are we moving our body? Are we managing stress? And are we getting sleep? At night is when our body recovers. So if you worked really hard the day before, um, if your stress was really high, being able to have that recovery time helps bring those stress levels down, helps the body recover, prevents injuries. And then the other thing that sleep is really important for that kind of falls into, I think, is where people were like, oh, it's my cortisol levels. That's why. Well, if we sleep like crap, our hunger hormone tells us we are hungry all day long, which we're going to eat more, which then makes us more stressed. So it all piles on top of each other. So I definitely think it became more of a buzzword. I do love when I see these things because it just means people are getting more interested in their health. And I love that. They're getting more curious. I think sometimes the curiosity gets blown out of proportion because, like, that's just what happens with social media and the news and all of the things these days. But just knowing of like, okay, I just learned that and being able to go to a reliable source to know, I noticed this. Is this something I should worry about? Is it something I shouldn't? I was working with a hormone doctor. We've done a few podcasts together and I asked her about the cortisol levels. And she said, for women, you have to be so strategic on where you test. And if I test you today, tomorrow they could look completely different. So it's hard to really know. The real question is, are we managing them? Do we feel relaxed? If we are feeling relaxed and our levels are high, then we've got some other things to look at. But a lot of us have a lot of things that are stressors in our life that whether we admit to them or not, they are underlying and they are causing higher heart rate, blood pressure, stress levels, all of the things.
That makes sense. Thank you. So I guess we're kind of at the point now where I just kind of want to recap a little bit of what you and I have talked about in terms of accountability. I know we got off on a couple side tangents. But I was hearing a lot of these trends and stuff, so I just wanted to get your opinion. But overall, when talking about accountability, some of the high points that you had mentioned was for setting intentions or setting goals or intentions, and then kind of starting to attack that with micro habits, but planning them and like setting your bare minimums and what does that look like, and then following that up with the tangible reward or a tangible um, tracking system for those micro habits that you're implementing. And then most importantly, I think the biggest point that I got out of today's conversation is switching that mindset from it needing to be perfect or I didn't hit my goals because I didn't drink all my water, but I drank some, and then focusing on that sum and that consistency of that bare minimum. That's what I've like mainly taken away from today, and I really appreciate all of your insights. Is there any other final remarks or pieces that you want to make sure are reiterated from today's conversation?
No, I think you did a great job. You had a great recap. I was like thinking of like, wow, we talked about so much stuff. That was a fantastic recap. Um, no, really the biggest thing is anytime we think about goals or intentions, don't get overwhelmed by doing all the things. Pick one thing to focus on and then share it with somebody. I don't
Yeah,
know about you, but how many times have we like had this idea in our head and it rolls around and then when we start to execute it and it doesn't go well, we're like, oh, okay, luckily I didn't tell anybody.
yeah,
But it also probably would have got further if I would have told somebody. So it's not a bad thing to tell somebody about what you are working on. It also may encourage them to do it. I've got a client and she's like, my husband just started walking last week. I was like, oh, like on his own? She's like, yeah, he just like went out and decided he was going to start walking. And I'm like, I love that. By
yeah,
sharing what we are doing and by showing up and doing the thing, you inspire those around you to do things at their own time. And that accountability, it can be a best friend, it can be a partner, it can be a child, it can be a group or a community. It doesn't matter what it looks like, but sharing it and knowing that there's other people in your corner who are doing the boring crap every single day because they know it makes their body feel good. We're all doing it. We just don't talk about it because it's not all glamorous and trendy and pink and glittery.
yes, yes, or fun or exciting. No,
Yes.
that's great. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for your time today. I truly appreciate the discussion. I think a lot of our listeners will as well, especially with us getting into the winter months here and kind of ramping up into our busy seasons coming up here at the end of winter. So thank you so much for providing the insight that you have on accountability and goal setting and all the things health and wellness. And like I said, more or that you mentioned at the beginning, Morgan will be at our business conference this year. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, she will be there to provide more insight and the stretch session in the morning. Like I said, I'm super excited about that. But with that, thank you everyone for joining us today, and I hope that you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week on the Dairy Signal. Thank you.